Breaking news! Time is running out, and things are heating up behind the scenes with the Texans. I need to talk to you about something serious today, which in my opinion is worrying if it's not resolved soon. Many fans were itching to see what was happening after the last OTA practice. Well, the question is, should we be worried about the offense after what was reported on the field? I'll tell you more details about that later. But before proceeding, make sure you've already hit the like button. But only do that if you've been a Texans fan for more than 14 years. It's great to see fans of all ages here. If possible, write, "Go Texans." This year, we're going to the Super Bowl. How great would it be to see that happening this year, right? Well, we still have time until then. Now let's talk about the last OTA practice. The discussion began after several observations from the practice pointed to a good performance from the defense. Reports indicated that Houston's defense made consistent plays throughout the session, with Derek Stingley Jr. intercepting passes and the passing game struggling to find consistency. Several observers noted that the wide receivers, with the exception of Nico Collins, had difficulty getting open, and the passing game in general did not perform at its best during practice. At first glance, that kind of report naturally grabs attention. Whenever fans hear that the offense struggled, especially during an off-season where expectations are extremely high, concern follows immediately. But the reality surrounding this practice appears much more complicated than a simple offense bad, defense good storyline. One of the most important details from the session is that this was far from a complete version of the Texans' offense. Several veterans were not participating fully, and some key contributors were unavailable for portions of practice. Nico Collins was present, but was not participating in the 7-on-7 and team periods that drew much of the attention afterward. Tank Dell also was not participating in drills. Other veterans were absent as well, meaning the offense that took the field was not the same offense fans expect to see when the season arrives. Even with that context, the defense clearly won the day. Reports from practice described several incompletions during team periods, including attempts involving Jaden Higgins and Lewis Bond. One deep ball was tipped by Callan Bullock, while other plays ended without completions. The overall picture painted by those observations was that Houston's defense controlled much of the action and made life difficult for the offense throughout the session. However, there is another side to this story that Texans fans should not ignore. Throughout the post-practice discussions, there was a repeated emphasis on the quality of the defense itself. The message coming from within the organization was that this is an extremely talented defensive unit, particularly in the secondary. The group has spent time building chemistry, developing communication, and working together within the system. When an offense spends every practice going against a defense operating at that level, difficult days are expected. That perspective matters because OTAs are designed for development. These practices are opportunities to install concepts, improve communication, and build chemistry. Winning every rep is not necessarily the primary objective. Coaches often care more about execution, understanding assignments, and correcting mistakes than they do about who wins a particular drill. And when discussing the offense, one positive topic surfaced repeatedly: communication. Several people around the team pointed to major improvements in communication compared to the previous year. That theme appeared throughout the day and became one of the strongest positive takeaways from practice. Even though the offense struggled at times against the defense, there was confidence that operationally the group is ahead of where it was previously. Will Anderson Jr. was among those who highlighted those improvements. According to comments made after practice, Anderson pointed specifically to CJ Stroud and Wyatt Teller as players bringing energy, urgency, and leadership before the snap. He noted improvements in how the offense gets organized and communicates prior to plays. Those details may not show up in highlights, but they are often critical to long-term offensive success. The mention of Wyatt Teller is particularly noteworthy. Veteran offensive linemen often contribute in ways that are not obvious from the outside. Their ability to organize protections, communicate assignments, and maintain structure can have a significant impact on the offense. The fact that Anderson specifically mentioned Teller's influence suggests that his presence is already being felt within the group. Another major storyline emerging from practice involves offensive coordinator Nick Collins. There continues to be optimism regarding his development and the growth of the offense under his leadership. According to comments from the coaching staff, Houston has been able to install additional concepts and add more wrinkles to the offense. There was praise for Collins' communication, leadership, and overall growth as a coach. The belief is that the offense is expanding and becoming more comfortable within the system. That does not mean everything is perfect. The offense still has plenty to prove, but there appears to be confidence that progress is occurring behind the scenes, even if every practice report does not produce glowing headlines. One important reminder that surfaced throughout the day was the fact that pads are not on yet. Several veterans were unavailable, multiple key players were limited, and the practices themselves remain relatively controlled. Because of that, there is a strong feeling that final judgments should wait until training camp and more physical practices begin. Meanwhile, Will Anderson Jr. continued to generate attention for his mindset. He explained that he only has one speed when he plays. According to Anderson, he does not slow things down or change his approach. He simply goes full speed. That mentality has become one of the defining characteristics of his game and helps explain why coaches continue praising his impact during practices. Anderson also spoke positively about several members of the offense. Beyond praising Stroud and Teller, he highlighted Brevin Jordan and Dalton Schultz as players who have made strong impressions. Those comments are interesting because they come from a defender who competes against these players regularly and sees their progress firsthand. Perhaps even more intriguing was Anderson's assessment of the OTA environment itself. He stated that these are the best OTA practices he has been part of. That is a significant statement from one of the team's most important leaders. While OTA performance should never be overvalued, hearing a player describe the practices in those terms certainly stands out. Nico Collins also provided several notable comments after practice. One topic that immediately drew attention was his decision regarding the Guardian cap. Collins explained that he chooses not to wear it because he feels it affects his ability to track the football. For a wide receiver whose success depends heavily on locating the ball in the air, that explanation reflects his personal preference regarding equipment. Collins also discussed his commitment to Houston following the raise he received this offseason. He emphasized his desire to remain with the organization and help the team achieve its goals, while acknowledging that football remains a business. His comments reflected both loyalty to the franchise and an understanding of the professional side of the sport. Another important point from Collins involved his focus on maintaining his health. He mentioned working on areas such as core strength and neck strength. That topic remains important because his availability has consistently been a significant factor in the success of the passing game. His importance was especially noticeable during this particular practice. Reports describing the struggles of the receiving group without Collins participating fully served as another reminder of how valuable he is within the offense. When observers discussed receivers having difficulty generating separation, Collins's absence from those competitive periods became impossible to ignore. Another player generating attention continues to be Jaden Higgins. The rookie spoke about how much further along the offense feels compared to the previous season. He also discussed being utilized both outside and in the slot, providing insight into how coaches may be exploring different ways to maximize his versatility. The ability to move around the formation could create opportunities for favorable matchups and expand his role within the offense. Higgins also spoke positively about Jalen Noel and the development he has seen from his former teammate. The overall tone of his comments reflected confidence in the growth of both players as they continue adapting to the professional level. Meanwhile, one unanswered question from practice involved rookie tight end Marlon Klein. When asked about Klein's absence, there was no detailed explanation provided. The response offered little information, leaving observers waiting to see whether additional details emerge later. For now, his absence remains one of the few unresolved stories from the practice session. Defensively, praise continued to flow. Second-year players Jalen Smith and Jalen Reed received positive comments following practice, highlighting their continued development. At the same time, the spotlight inevitably returned to Derek Stingley Jr. after another impressive performance on the field. One of the biggest moments from the session came when Stingley recorded a pick-6 during practice. Following the workout, there was praise for his level of play, with suggestions that he already looks as sharp as he would during the regular season. It was another reminder of why he remains one of the most important players on the defense and why opposing offenses continue to have difficulty challenging him. By the end of the day, the biggest takeaway remained clear. The defense dominated much of the action. The offense faced challenges, but inside the building, there appears to be confidence that meaningful progress is still being made. Communication is improving. Leadership is growing. Additional concepts are being installed. Players are noticing positive changes, and the coaching staff continues to believe the offense is moving in the right direction despite a difficult day against a defense that consistently made plays. For Texans fans, the question now becomes whether this was simply a strong defensive performance or an early warning sign that the offense still has significant work to do before the season begins. What do you think, Texans fans? Are you encouraged by the reports about improved communication and leadership, or are you worried after hearing that the defense controlled much of the practice? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want the latest Houston Texans news first, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and click the video on your screen. The fastest Texans updates and biggest developments are right here.